are Canada's most famous heritage buildings, but some of them are falling apart.
The building is in we like to call it sort of accelerated rate of deterioration.
But one of them has just been restored and it's a national treasure.
It's an architectural jewel. It really has no parallel anywhere that I can think of.
On News and Review today, restoring the Parliamentary Library. Hello, I'm Carla Robinson. The magnificent buildings on Parliament Hill are a proud sight for Canadians and the heart of our democracy. But recently, parts of the hill have been looking a bit like a construction site. Some of the old buildings are literally falling apart. In the West Block, stretch material holds in loose chunks of stone. Over at the East Block, wooden beams strapped with belts hold the towers securely, and the stained glass windows in the House of Commons are leaking. A multi-billion-dollar renovation project is being planned, but it will take years. One building that has been saved is the beautiful Parliamentary Library. A few years ago, it was in really bad shape, but as the CBC's Peter Mansbridge reports, it has been restored to its former glory.
Perched on a cliff overlooking the Ottawa River, the imposing Parliament buildings are perhaps the finest example of neo-Gothic architecture in the country. And hidden amid those massive and famous structures is, well, a somewhat less well-known jewel, the Library of Parliament. Its parts, the different materials, colors, and textures combine to create a stunning Victorian Gothic building.
The library is arguably the most important heritage building in the country.
It never lacks in the wow factor. Compared to other state capitol buildings around the world, it can hold its own.
It's an architectural jewel. It really has no parallel anywhere that I can think of.
And that's just the outside. Inside are more than 1 million books and documents, providing an extensive and indispensable research tool for parliamentarians.
Well, as soon as I cross that threshold of the library, this great sense of peace settles over me. It's just the atmosphere, the history, the connection that you feel to your political and cultural heroes that used to use that same space, you know.
And also an oasis of calm, just steps away from the crush of scrums and cacophony of question period. It's not all politics and policy on the shelves. The library contains a rare book collection that would have them drooling on the Antiques Roadshow. This one, James Audubon's Birds of America, dates to the 19th century and is valued at $14 million. But the birds and the library were under threat. The ravages of time were taking a toll on the building. It was deteriorating to the point where the valuable collection was at risk. From the roofs, water was running into the masonry system, eating away at the mortar, and seeping inside, corroding window trim and damaging the walls. The floors were worn down by the constant comings and goings of staff and 500,000 tourists a year. The building's infrastructure, the heating, ventilation, and lighting needed an upgrade. In fact, from the basement to the tip of the weather vane, it was time for a total overhaul. Even the centerpiece of the reading room, a statue of Queen Victoria, would get a makeover. In 1857, Canada wasn't yet a country. Ottawa, little more than a village. But it was Queen Victoria herself who chose the bluff on the Ottawa River for the new Dominion's Parliament buildings. The chief librarian of the legislative buildings of Upper and Lower Canada didn't want his precious book collection housed under just any roof. He was struck by the magnificent reading rooms being built for the British Museum.
The idea of a radial plan for a library was actually very new, very exciting at the time. The notion was that from a central point within the library, you could review or view all of the book stacks and people in the library.
Thomas Fuller, a recently immigrated architect from England, and his Canadian partner adopted the idea.
The first round library in Canada was undertaken for the Library of Parliament.
In 1859, construction began. It was high Victorian neo-Gothic in style with 16 radiating buttresses. The main roof was made of purple and green slate, the masonry of 4 types of stone.
You had a composition that was very colorful, very playful, and this was very, very typical of the high Victorian Gothic style, as compared to, for example, what was done in the United States with their Capitol building, which would be a neoclassical style, very white, very serene.
The library was finished in 1877, 17 years after construction began, and like so many Ottawa projects to come, it came in vastly over budget. It was also already too small to house the growing collection. Then, on February the 4th, 1916, disaster struck. Fire broke out in the center block and spread to the surrounding buildings. For 3 days, firemen pumped water on the flames. The library was the only building left standing, and only because it had the one set of heavy steel doors on the hill which hadn't been replaced by oak doors. And fortunately, someone had the foresight to close them. The center block was rebuilt during World War I. The library was almost lost again in 1952, when another fire destroyed the dome of the building.
There was a lot of water damage, and more than damage by flames. The floor had to be replaced, and a lot of the woodwork had to be repaired.
That disaster led to the first expensive reconstruction of what had become an icon in the nation's capital. And the library stood against the elements for the next 5 decades. But by 1995, it was time for a massive makeover. And so the Ministry of Public Works began this renovation.
When we were awarded the contract, well, I think I didn't sleep for a couple of nights. My heart was racing.
4 architectural firms were hired, as well as hundreds of artisans and specialists, 1,200 people in all. And guess who ended up being the general contractor?
We wanted that job, there's no question about it, and we were very ambitious to get it. We had to win the competition, we had to come up with the right price. We had the passion, we had the desire, and I think the government was very appreciative that the low bidder was in fact the great-grandchildren of the architect.
His great-grandfather was Thomas Fuller, the original architect of the library.
The biggest challenge isn't what we would have thought at the beginning. It ended up being the bureaucracy on the project. When it comes to any sort of an issue that we have a difference of opinion on, the terms of our contract are such that Public Works can ask us to do the work under protest.
Still, there was big money and a family reputation on the line.
The entire care, custody, and control of the building was handed over to us on the first day of the contract, and we thought, boy, one careless cigarette butt, one anything, nothing can happen to this building, not on our watch.
They had to take care. Once the digging started and the mortar had been removed, the entire structure was left unstable.
If you look at a footprint of the building, we had a freestanding structural frame, we called it the teepee.
Fuller's challenge was to build a unique protective superstructure so the work could go ahead on one of the windiest locations in the capital.
There's over 300 tons of force that can be exerted on the scaffolding as a result of the wind, uplift on one side and pressure on the other. We didn't want that anchored into the building.
In January 2003, after 7 years of planning, the distinctive flying buttresses and green roofs disappeared under a white fabric cocoon. The historic renovation would take 4 years to complete on a budget of $136 million. Of all the work on the library, the most dangerous and complex was to carve out 3 stories of rock under the building. It was a kind of mining operation, but too fragile and too delicate for dynamite.
They had to sink a shaft down outside the building, tunnel in horizontally, and then come up through the center into the existing basement. And then concentrically around that, they would use rock splitters and drilling, break off the rock and send it down and out horizontally and up the mine and off the site.
Outside on the stonework, black mortar was used with the rubble masonry, tan with the Ohio sandstone, red with Potsdam, and the gray with the Gloucester limestone. In all, 20 kilometers of joints repointed, not a stone left untouched. Many of the workers left a personal mark.
It's X11X, which is cryptic for my initials, which are J, Joshua Bennett Johnston, J being the 10th letter of the alphabet, B being the second and 10th again.
For the work to proceed on the roofs, the top was lifted and a protective covering sealed the building.
Well, the roof of the library, we use 20-ounce copper, which is 1 square foot of that sheet is 20 ounces. And we use 12 to 14 ton of copper to do the roofs on the library. Some of it was made, well, all of it was made by hand because it's all cornice work. It's not really a challenge, it's a dream come true. You want to work on these buildings, you know, that's what we do. And the fancier and the nicer they are, the better we feel about it.
With the roofs finished, the Manel, a copper and nickel alloy, shines on the pinnacles. The copper is already changing color. Meanwhile, back inside, 1,200 plaster ornaments need checking, including up at the top of the dome.
We're just listening to see if we get that cracked flower pot sound anywhere. That's pretty distinctive. Maybe. There it is. Inside here was broken before I hit it. The inside is 2 pieces of dry plaster put together that never did bond.
200 tiny cracks are drilled, the holes filled with resin. The original woodwork, white pine, full of sculptural detail, stayed but needed serious work. The dome, which was white, got a new color to highlight its architectural details.
In my opinion, we're as close as we can be to what the original colors were in 1877. If you look here specifically at the ironwork, after the 1953 renovation, all of this had been painted over in black.
In November 2004, at dawn, the new copper crown was gently placed atop the building. It was a day to remember for Gilbert Bazinet.
Oh, my heart just glows. It's so beautiful.
The elegant exterior ironwork, now in colors of ultramarine and gold, was returned to its place. And finally, the building was topped with its new weather vane. Talk about extreme makeover.
My great-grandfather was known to say that light, God's eldest daughter, was a principal place of beauty in a building. The interplay between the light and the space, when you walk into the library now, it's a much different feel than when you walked in before we started. From my earliest recollections as a young lad growing up, my father would tell us the stories of his grandfather and how he came to win the competition to design the Parliament buildings, and it instilled a lot of pride at a young age and wanted us to be able to leave our mark when we grew up as well.
A lot of people feel that the library is the most important heritage building in the country for various reasons. On the one hand, it's the only remaining portion of the original Parliament buildings, since the original ones burnt down in 1916, but also a lot of people come into this room and feel it's the most beautiful room in the country. Of course, people have different opinions, but I would certainly share that opinion.
From one family's heritage to a nation's.
Sounds like a place to visit if you're ever in Ottawa. And that's News in Review. I'm Carla Robinson. Thanks for watching.